Where does he rank among the greatest tennis players of all time? Number 1, and quickly. Where do you place Becker in his prime? A 20-year-old Grand Slam legend. That single declaration sent the internet into meltdown. This is what happens when the Madrid Open clay season collides with the most dangerous young player in women's tennis right now. Becker sat down in front of the microphone, a man who has witnessed everything this sport can offer since the 1980s. 6 Grand Slam titles to his name, years spent dismantling opponents as a head coach. He knows a champion the moment he sees one. He watched Alex, and heading into the Madrid Open, a prestigious WTA 1000 clay event packed with the best women in the game, he didn't hesitate. He didn't talk about potential. He didn't say, "Watch out for her." He made a bold, direct declaration with no escape route. He called her the clear favorite. That word hit differently. Because the player he was talking about is someone who grew up swinging on the same red clay courts we're trained in. The same player who, in 2023, became the first Filipino in history to win a WTA singles title. The athlete who has been carrying the hopes of 115 million people on her racket since the day she turned pro. Every point she wins, an entire nation feels it. The haters had a field day, the critics came out swinging, but Becker answered every single one of them. He completely dismantled the narrative that she doesn't belong at this level. "Nice to see the welcome that I've had. There's a huge Filipino community here, so I'm really excited they've come out to support. Subscribe because this channel covers what the mainstream tennis world refuses to say out loud." Here's exactly how it unfolded. Becker didn't stumble into this conversation. He walked into it deliberately. In a recent interview that quickly spread across tennis media, he was asked about the top contenders in the women's clay court season heading into Madrid. Most pundits in that position play it safe. They name 3 or 4 players, spread the praise evenly, and protect their credibility by covering every possible angle. Becker did none of that. He paused for a moment, the kind of pause that tells you something significant is coming, and then pointed straight at Alex as the player the tennis world needed to be paying serious attention to on that Madrid clay. Not just one name among many, the name. That statement sent the internet into chaos. To understand why Becker's words carried such weight, you have to understand the authority he brings, especially when speaking about clay court tennis. This is not a man whose best tennis was limited to grass or hard courts. Becker reached the French Open semifinals in 1987. He knows exactly what the surface demands, physically, tactically, and mentally. He understands what separates players who merely look good on clay from those who are genuinely built for it. And when he identified as someone truly built for it, he wasn't speaking out of sentiment. He was speaking from pure observation. So what exactly did he observe? What does Alex actually bring to a clay court? Starts with her foundation. Didn't follow the conventional junior tennis path, constantly chasing rankings. At just 14 years old, she earned a scholarship to the academy in Mallorca, the very same academy where perfected the game that made him the greatest clay court player in history. She trained there for years. The red clay wasn't an occasional surface for her. It was home. Every ground stroke, every movement pattern, and every tactical instinct she developed was shaped on that clay. When she steps onto a clay court today, she isn't adjusting, she is arriving. That deep-rooted education shows up in very specific, measurable ways. Her forehand generates heavy topspin, the kind that kicks up viciously off the clay and forces opponents onto the back foot even when they try to attack. Her backhand is compact and rock-solid under pressure, which becomes incredibly important on a surface that stretches rallies and exposes any technical flaws over time. Her movement on clay is fluid rather than purely explosive. She slides into her shots instead of planting and pushing, a technique that takes years to master properly and clearly separates true clay specialists from those who are just visiting. These aren't qualities she is still developing, these are qualities she already possesses. Her 2023 title run provided the clearest proof yet of what she's capable of. Winning a WTA title at any level is genuinely difficult. The depth in women's professional tennis means even lower-tier events are stacked with experienced competitors. Didn't just win that event, she won it with the kind of composure that many older, more seasoned players often struggle to find in high-pressure title matches. She closed out matches. She handled pressure exceptionally well. Becker has watched enough elite tennis to recognize real composure when he sees it, the kind that isn't just circumstantial but genuine. He clearly believes hers is the real deal. Now, this is where the critics entered the conversation, and their argument is important to understand. The main criticism against is centered on one point. her current WTA ranking does not yet justify placing her above established top players like or Coco in a WTA 1000 field. In particular, is a four-time French Open champion whose clay court record is arguably the most dominant in women's tennis today. Has shown she can compete on any surface. To many critics, suggesting that a player still climbing the rankings and accumulating results should be considered the clear favorite over athletes with that level of pedigree isn't just wrong, it's irresponsible. On the surface, that argument sounds logical. But Becker dismantled it from the ground up. He didn't deny those players' impressive records. He openly acknowledged dominance on clay and the overall depth of the field. What he argued instead was that the Madrid Open presents a very specific set of conditions that play differently from a standard clay court event, and within those conditions, game profile makes her uniquely dangerous. The altitude in Madrid is significant. This sits roughly 650 meters above sea level, and that elevation affects how the ball travels. The ball flies faster through the air, rallies tend to be slightly shorter, and the long, grinding wars of attrition that clay usually rewards become less dominant. Players who rely primarily on raw physical power and relentless baseline depth, a style that describes clay game very well, often find Madrid a little less forgiving than Roland or Rome. Game, by contrast, is perfectly suited for that environment. Her heavy topspin remains highly effective at altitude. Her movement is agile rather than power-dependent. Her shot-making relies more on precision and timing than brute force, and both precision and timing tend to hold up better at elevation than pure pace does. Becker wasn't claiming that Eala is a better player than Swiatek in absolute terms. He was saying that Madrid's unique conditions turn Eala into a far more dangerous threat in this particular tournament than her ranking might suggest. The critics, he implied, were applying a generic ranking-based framework to a situation that actually demands a much more specific analysis. That distinction is crucial, and it's exactly what many of her detractors either missed or refused to address. There's also another layer to this story that goes beyond tactics and surface conditions. Becker didn't shy away from it. The narrative surrounding Eala carries a weight that most players on the WTA Tour never have to deal with. She isn't just another tennis player chasing ranking points and prize money. She is the most visible female athlete in a country of 115 million people, where tennis is not the dominant sport, where the infrastructure for producing world-class players is still developing, and where every result she achieves is measured not only against her opponents, but against an entire nation's hopes for global representation. That kind of pressure has broken many promising careers before they could reach their full potential. Eala has not crumbled under it. Instead, she has grown stronger because of it. Her ability to perform in high-stakes moments, to serve out sets, to close out matches, and to produce her best tennis when the situation demands it, reveals a mental toughness that is remarkably mature for someone so young. Becker clearly recognized this. He suggested that her mental game is just as advanced as her technical skills. For a player in her early 20s facing seasoned professionals with multiple Grand Slam titles, that is not a minor advantage. That is everything. The critics who pushed back against Becker's assessment made one key mistake. They treated his declaration as emotional hype, the kind of thing a commentator says just to create buzz or push an underdog narrative. What they failed to accept is that Becker was speaking analytically. He has no personal connection to the Philippines and no stake in Eala's career. He wasn't doing her any favors. He was simply doing what an observer with nearly 50 years of elite tennis experience does. He watched, he assessed, and he reported what he saw with complete honesty. Dismissing that kind of assessment as mere hype isn't healthy skepticism. It's bias disguised as skepticism. Heading into the Madrid Open, the potential matchups for Eala are genuinely exciting. The clay court season so far has shown her competing with increasing confidence at the WTA level, building the match fitness and competitive rhythm needed for a deep run in a WTA 1000 event. Her serve, once an area that needed improvement, has become far more reliable. It may not be as dominant as Sabalenka's, but it's now consistent enough to hold serve in crucial moments without handing out cheap breaks. Her return game on clay is sharp. She reads spin exceptionally well, a skill developed from years of facing heavy-hitting practice partners at the Natal Academy. Against opponents who try to push her back with heavy topspin, she stays calm, absorbs the pace, and redirects effectively. The question the tennis world is now seriously asking: because Becker forced the conversation into the open, is no longer whether Eala belongs at this level. For anyone watching without preconceived bias, that debate is already settled. The real question is whether this specific tournament on this specific surface at this exact moment in her development becomes the stage where she announces herself to the global audience in a way that can no longer be dismissed or qualified. Boris Becker believes it will. He said it plainly and put his reputation on the line in a public forum where being wrong carries real professional consequences for someone whose tennis analysis is part of his livelihood. That is not the action of someone making a careless comment for attention. That is the action of someone who saw something special on the court and felt confident enough to say it out loud, no matter the backlash. The haters will keep talking. They always do when someone from outside the traditional tennis hierarchy suddenly gets elevated into the spotlight. The pattern is familiar. A young talent from a non-traditional tennis nation rises, a respected voice endorses their potential, and the establishment responds by attacking the endorser's judgment rather than engaging with the actual evidence. Becker refused to back down. He has seen this story play out before in tennis and other sports, with players who eventually proved their doubters spectacularly wrong. His willingness to stand by his words under pressure is itself a powerful signal. It suggests he has seen something in Eala that he is absolutely confident in. At just 20 years old, she has already achieved what no Filipino tennis player had done before her. She trained at one of the most demanding academies in the world and came out with a game that is technically sophisticated, tactically smart, and mentally resilient. She is stepping onto the Madrid clay, the surface she knows better than almost anyone, in a tournament whose special conditions suit her style perfectly. And now she carries the public support of one of the sport's most decorated champions behind her. The haters will continue talking. They talked before her first professional title and she won it anyway. They will talk during the Madrid Open and she will answer them the only way that truly matters, with her racket in hand on the clay courts where Boris Becker said she belongs. He made the call. Now the clay will deliver the verdict.